Let's get started. Welcome to the August 23rd, 2023 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. I'm Candace Breyer, Chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a 9-person volunteer board nominated by the mayor and approved by City Council. First, we will hear from Planning Services, represented tonight by John Barrett. Then the applicant or their representative will make their presentation. Applicants will have 5 minutes in which to make their presentation. Staff will keep time and will announce when 30 seconds are remaining. Public comment is available in person or remotely. We will first call on individuals present to address the board, then remote participants. To speak during a public hearing or during public comment remotely, press star 9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 938-1648-1007. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand using the last 3 digits of their phone number or by name if available for those accessing through the web link. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds. We may ask questions of either the applicant or the city. We will acknowledge any written comments received by the board. We will allow an appearing party to express their support or objections. The board will then discuss the appeal and formulate a motion to approve the appeal. 5 affirmative votes of the board will be required for an appeal to be granted. Finally, any qualified party who is aggrieved by a decision of the board can appeal that decision to the Washtenaw County Circuit Court on a timely basis. Roll call: Candace Breyer, I am here. Todd Grant. Dave DeVarty.
DeVarty here.
Chris Madigan.
Here.
Sadira Clark. Grace Whitney. Here. Mike Daniel.
Here.
Dharma Ackman.
Here.
Christina Glusak. Here. We have a quorum. Moving on to approval of the agenda. I will note briefly, I will need to recuse myself from the second item on our agenda, petition ZBA 230019. So Dave will take over chair duties during that appeal, but otherwise, are there any questions, comments, changes to the agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you, Dave. Support? From Dharma, thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to approval of minutes. We have minutes from the June 28th, 2023 meeting, as well as the July 26th, 2023 meeting. So I guess we can take them individually. We'll start with June. Any questions, comments, corrections on those minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve the June minutes? Thank you, Mike. Support? From Grace, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and now July. Any questions, comments, corrections on those? Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Mike, thanks. Support? Support. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to public hearings. We have petition ZBA 23-0013, 3720 Windermere Drive. John?
The first petition before us this evening is ZBA 23-0013. The address is 3720 Windermere Drive. Lubisha Mladenovich, property owner, represented this evening by Lillian Saba, attorney, is requesting a 2-foot variance from section 5.26.2, subsection 3, fences in residential zoning districts in order to construct a 10-foot privacy fence in the rear yard. The maximum height for a fence in the rear yard is 8 feet tall. The subject property is zoned R1B, single-family dwelling district. The subject property is in the Earhart Knolls subdivision on the south side of Windermere Drive, north of Glacier Way and west of Earhart Road. The residence was built in 1985 and is approximately 2,207 square feet in size. The owner is requesting a 2-foot variance for a rear yard privacy fence that will screen the adjacent property to the east. The property located at 3740 Windermere Drive obtained a residential building permit, which was building permit 11-1199 on August 16, 2011, for a 425 square foot addition to the west side of their home. The submitted site plan indicated the addition to be a minimum of 6 feet 5 inches from the western lot line. The minimum side setback for the R1B single-family dwelling district is 5 feet. According to the survey submitted by the applicant, the addition is 3.7 feet from the side lot line. The applicant is requesting the 2-foot fence height variance for the length of the fence that will be approximately 34 feet in length. There are 4 panels that are all 8 feet 5 inches in length. If you'll turn your attention to the monitors, you see the first slide is the location map with the subject property highlighted in yellow in the center of your screen on the south side of Windermere Drive, just north of Glacier Way. The next slide is the aerial map showing surrounding properties and existing conditions. And the next slide shows a zoomed-in aerial of the subject property. And if you see my cursor, the applicant is requesting the fence to be located adjacent to the southeast corner of his property, down the property line along here for the length of the 34 feet at 10 feet tall. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. And it says right here that with this survey, it shows that the 3.7 feet east of the property line, and you see that relationship between the two properties. The next slide is a detail of the proposed fence. You see the elevations and the details in the drawings and the proposed location, as I was indicating earlier, just off the southeast corner, straight down in the southerly direction. These are the photos that I took at my inspection. This is the front of the property. And this is the rear of the existing residence, looking directly at the southern side of the property. And in this slide, you see the relationship between the 2 dwelling units. The left side is the subject property, the right side is the neighbors, and you see the existing conditions, and the proposed fence is to be off this corner, coming down this direction. The next slide shows a different relationship between the 2 properties. This is looking north between the 2 properties, or excuse me, south between the 2 properties. I'm on the eastern side of the subject property and the western side of the adjacent property, and you see the survey stake markers in the ground. This is looking from the rear of the property towards the front, towards the north, and you see just a little bit different angle of the property, and you can see the property stakes in the picture as well. And this is looking directly towards the back rear lot line of the subject property. This was the site plan that was submitted with the building permit from 2011 that I mentioned, and this is the new addition to the neighbors, and it shows the 6.5-foot distance that was indicated on the building permit. That is the end of the conclusion of my presentation. I can take any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you, John. Questions?
Can I ask you to go to one of the pictures that shows both the houses? So the one on the left in this picture is the subject, right?
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
So,
Dave, go ahead.
looking at this picture, the one on the right, that was the building permit site plan that you showed at the end of that presentation,
Yes,
was for that addition in 2011.
that's correct.
And it complies with setback requirements or not?
It does not, according to the survey that was submitted. It's supposed to be 5 feet off the side lot line. It's 3.7 feet, so approximately 3 feet 10 inches.
And they did not get a variance in
No.
2011 when they
No.
built that addition? And we didn't catch it? The city did not catch that?
No.
Any other questions for John? Mike?
So what happens when that happens? Is there any recourse for the city here?
Well, I wasn't here at this time.
No,
but
yeah.
I know the city's not in the business of making people tear down structures, and at this point, it's a non-conforming situation. I don't know what's going on. It's a non-conforming situation.
Understood. Thanks, John.
Sorry, everyone, mine.
Is that better? No. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. I'm not sure what's going on.
Right, any other questions for John? Think of your question. We're waiting. You think it'd be 3 years?
Test.
Pardon me? No, there's no audio on the. Testing, yes. Oh, that's good now.
I think we're good now. All
Okay,
right,
let's try to
questions
move
for John?
forward.
Right, before it goes haywire again. Dharma.
I think you were finishing your statement about it. You started echoing when you said, I
Okay,
think it was a
yes,
tricky
so
situation.
At this point, the structure would be considered a non-conforming structure,
Gotcha. So, yeah, I was just curious. I don't
allowed to
remember.
remain as it is.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, John.
All right, if the applicant is here, you can come forward and make your presentation. You'll have 5 minutes.
Before my 5-minute time starts, is it okay if I ask a technical question?
Yeah.
My client is online, and he messaged me that he cannot hear Mr. Barrett when he was making the presentation, so I'm worried that he's not having access to this meeting. Is that okay if I give him a call just to confirm that he can hear him, or is there a way that you guys can confirm? He texted me he was having difficulties hearing Mr. Barrett speak.
Okay, can he hear everyone else?
I don't
Or you
know.
don't? Okay.
I didn't.
Lubashaw, can you hear us?
Do you see him on the Zoom, Courtney? Okay.
While they're doing that, should I just ask him?
Yeah, yeah, if you want to check and see if
Yeah.
he can hear us now, that'd be great.
Just as an FYI, my client is having the same issue trying to.
Recording in progress.
Your client's on Zoom as well.
So we can hear each other in triplicate. but no one on the side of this room can hear us.
Hello?
There he is.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you,
He's
Lubasha.
on my call, though.
Who?
Oh, Lubisha, this is your attorney. You're on the entire room right now. I just wanted to make sure, can you hear Mr. Barrett when I hang up this call?
No, I didn't hear.
Okay, I'm going to hang up and we're going to see if you can hear him, okay? Okay.
Lubasha, can you hear me?
Recording in progress.
Is your client still having problems?
You can't hear. Still having a routing? So my client says no, I can't. Well, it's a network check, but here, ears wrong.
So yeah, something's not.
Oh, he's hearing that as well. Let's go.
Hello?
Okay, should I keep him on my phone? No. Okay. I'm going to hang up. And how is my phone connecting to the system? My phone's not connecting to the system, too.
Hello?
Oh. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yes.
It should be. It's supposed to be muted. Is it still working?
Still echoing.
So there's two issues.
you there? Oh. Yeah, I put the mute button and it should be muted.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Seems
Is
to
that
be
your-
working now.
Yeah, it's still coming out.
Test, test.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. That's better.
And can everyone on Zoom hear us?
Sure.
Yeah, it should be working now. Yeah.
Lubisha, can you hear us?
Yes, I could hear it.
Okay. And
Success. All right.
All right. So whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
Yes, go for
Okay.
it.
So thank you, Mr. Barrett, for your presentation. I think it was clearly kind of shown the reason we're having this, and I especially appreciated your question regarding the kind of like, what do you do now? What's the recourse for the city? We've got a non-conforming structure that is encroaching on what that original permit allowed for it. And now the neighbor has been living with that for, last several years. Doesn't mean that he has been okay with it the last several years. It's been problematic to the point where he feels he cannot use and enjoy his home like every citizen enjoys their home, especially when they are outside, when he's got people visiting, when he has anybody doing any sort of work on his property, whether it be a landscaper or any guest onto his property. He's got the neighbors that are on that encroaching non-conforming property side, peeking in through the windows, taking pictures of his property. And it's come to the point where whatever trees that were there, as you can tell in the pictures, some are leaning over. There's been ice storms, there's been storms, those trees have had to come down. He needs something more permanent, more stable to have him enjoy his property. All he's asking for is a 2-foot variance. It already allows for an 8-foot, but the 8-foot doesn't cover those windows that you see on that side where they would still be able to peer over that 8-foot fence if it were erected at 8 feet, where they would still be able to see through. I have a picture here of an example of a similar property in Ann Arbor that was granted a 10-foot, and as you can see, it's got greenery and ways to make it look, not be a sore. And that's all he's asking for. And the panels, it would be 10 feet, only in the panels that cover the home. So as you look at the architecture map, it does go down to 8 feet, and then it's only a 30-foot fence. It doesn't go around the entire property. It doesn't prevent air from going back and forth. It doesn't prevent anything. It just basically gives him that structure where he would be able to right an injustice that was kind of upon him by this non-conforming structure. And I think you're going to hear arguments that, well, the HOA hasn't approved it. That's a whole other route. And of course, it runs parallel, but it's a whole other route. We're asking for the variance, and then we will, my client has been trying to get HOA to come on board, but the HOA president has just resigned. This person that wrote the opposing letter, who's friends with the neighbors of the non-conforming property, has recently resigned when I sent her a letter myself asking for compliance from the board on the HOA Architectural Committee. That is the body that's supposed to approve fences and structures being built. There's, the homeowners association has not given him that per the agreement. They have not given him that association architectural committee. I don't know if it exists. I don't know if it's there. The president just stopped answering emails and said, I resigned. So that's a whole other route. So I'm coming to you for just that 2-foot variance. Obviously, once this is approved, we'll do our best to kind of try to get this board to comply with us, try to get the HOA to do that. So that's one letter that you got that is opposing this. The other letter is the attorney for the Spires, which is kind of, or McCarran and Spires, which is also going to say the same thing as the neighbors, which is, this is not necessary, we don't need it. He took down trees that were there.
1 minute
But-
remaining.
Thank you. But I'm to tell you, yeah, trees come down, they lean over, there's storms. We need something a little bit more permanent. So that is why I hope that this board can help my client in correcting this kind of injustice that has been put upon his property, allow him to finally have that peace of mind and ability to use his property. And I think that this is the least invasive way, and it's not tearing down their structure that is, non-conforming. It's basically saying, keep your structure, but let me enjoy mine. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions? Mike?
Hi, just trying to confirm, so the length of the fence, not the height, but the length of the fence being proposed where it is going to be 10 feet, does that go beyond the length of the structure that's non-conforming? Or is it just as long as the structure that's
Just
not?
as long as the structure.
No further, not,
It's not, as far as I know, and I'm pretty sure that the plans are for it to go as far as the structure and the deck of their property. So not any further down the way. So the rest of it is supposed to be whatever that is required by by the zoning.
If you look at the west elevation on number, circle 3 at the bottom,
yeah.
that's looking from the subject property towards the east, and it's the first 2 panels are 10 feet, and then it goes up a little bit, probably 9 and then 8.
So it's kind of going to be like a
So it'll be-
gradual.
So it'd be 10 foot for a total length of 17 feet, 2 8.5-foot sections.
Right,
Yeah.
but does that track the length of the non-conforming adjacent property, or is it longer than that?
So if you look at the fence plan next to that, or the aerial,
Yeah,
you see the first 2 sections, 8.5 and 8.5? Those are at the top, those first 2 sections would be the 17 feet of length. And then it goes down to 9 and then 8. It's a gradual thing with the slope. Do you see that in that?
I see it. I maybe I just not good at looking at plans. I'm just trying to find out, is the 10 feet part going longer than the non-conforming adjacent property?
Just, so it's that second panel, the second 8.5-foot panel.
So
that's
right
on the
here.
On the south side.
Mm-hmm.
The corner, the southwest corner of the non-conforming house is about, halfway through the middle of that.
Right, okay, so it would go longer,
So
the 10
by,
feet part.
so 2 panels right
Yeah.
here. So it would go longer by half a panel, but I don't think they could do a half a panel be 10 feet and the other half be something else. I mean, I think the panels have to be one section,
Okay.
if that makes sense. But
I mean, I don't know
believe-
if that's true or not, so it's hard, I'm not saying.
Yeah, no, I
it-
understand, yeah. I mean, I think what I said is that it would go to where their deck is, which is right outside their non-conforming property. They've got a deck here, and I don't know if there's the picture of the back.
Is the deck non-conforming?
So their deck, you could see that there's like a brick deck right
Right.
outside. It would
Right.
go to that.
It would cover that. Mm-hmm. But is the deck non-conforming?
No, because the deck is only required to be 3 feet off the sidewalk.
Okay, thanks.
And it's, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Christina, did you have a question? Okay, Chris? Go for it, yeah.
Amongst the standards that we use to judge these, second one talks about the practical difficulties will result in failure, that would result in the failure to grant variance substantially more than an inconvenience or inability to obtain higher financial return. In his written response, the property owner talks about property value, which I think that criteria kind of prohibits. And he talked about privacy, which I think we all understand. Can you maybe jump into a little bit more about why that is more than just an inconvenience?
Yeah. Now, I'm not a real estate agent, but I know if, anybody that's going to come purchase a house and they see the next door neighbor's non-conforming property just so close looking onto their property, it's going to lower the value of that house and perhaps lower the value of the house that has that property that's non-conforming, because they're both still, not enjoying their privacy. So it's a problem on both ends, and I would argue that it would decrease the value if it stays as is, that perhaps if it has this type of fence, that it will increase the value of both properties, thinking that we have privacy here.
Okay. So my second question is, so if this addition had been built 5 feet from the property line rather than 3.7 feet, do I have those correct? The 5 foot would be a conforming structure, conforming with our standards. I guess I'm curious, would the concerns about privacy not still exist with a structure that's 5 feet away versus 3.7 feet away from the property line? Just looking at how it's built with the windows there, I'm not sure the conforming structure offers more privacy in this situation.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I would say that, just like we're coming here and asking for this type of variance, and when building that structure, the neighbors should have been asked as well. And I believe this renovation was done while he was on vacation, so he never got that opportunity to dispute it. So, but to answer your particular question, it's privacy, but also property line that's at issue here. With a non-conforming property that's already now closer to the setback comes shrubs and landscape and sprinkler lines, all of which are just inching closer and closer and closer to his property. And yeah, that's another issue. And so I think this would kind of resolve both of those issues.
Okay, thank you.
And, yeah, Dharma.
I have a question about how the city's requirements mesh with the HOA, or is that just irrelevant to us?
They're two separate situations. The city doesn't regulate HOA requirements. It's a completely separate entity than the city. If they are granted a variance here and they apply for a permit, they have to comply with the city's requirements, but then there would be possible repercussions with the HOA. I can't speak for the HOA. I don't know what the, yeah, two separate boards, two separate governing bodies.
I had a comment, it's an observation that I think will lead into a question. When I look at this photo, it seems that the non-conforming structure, the floor elevation, is significantly higher than Mr. Mladenovich's property. Is that an accurate statement? I'm just looking at the porch, just from where the chair is on the right, and it just, drawing an imaginary horizontal line over to his house, it seems that it towers over that side of the property. Is that a fair assessment? I haven't been to the property, so.
I think you probably would have a better answer than me. I've never been to the property, but just looking at this picture, I can see that the deck is set higher, but I think that's because it's a deck. But in terms of elevation, I think the map shows that it is a little bit higher elevation, which
Well,
is
my
why.
point is, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I think that which is why the 8 foot like 8-foot fence wouldn't be
Yeah,
enough.
okay, understood. So, and then to sort of pick up on what Chris's comment was that, does that make that much difference between the 3'7" to the 5 feet? I think it personally, again, this is my observation, that because of that finished floor elevation to me, it seems significant. And so that is a little exacerbated the closer it gets to that lot line. So it brings the issue more to the surface than if it was more on, floor elevation to floor elevation, even, across the property line. So for my observation here, it doesn't, but, so, that's all I have to say, or that's all I wanted to comment on, but thank you for the feedback.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
If there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, at this point, we'll open the public hearing. Any participants will have 3 minutes to speak. Anyone who's here in person will have an opportunity to speak first, and then anyone accessing the meeting remotely, please press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand function if you're accessing via the web link, and staff will call on you when it is your turn.
My name is Joe Lloyd. I'm an attorney, and I represent the neighboring property owners who are here also. 3 minutes is somewhat of a constraint on a lawyer. If I hurry, I apologize. I'm not going to redo the arguments that we made in the written submissions we made. I mean, I think we laid stuff out. I'm not going to repeat it. I do want to address some of the comments that were made that present what I think are serious, factual assertions that we just don't agree with. The idea of peeking and taking pictures, I mean, it's just not true. And the idea that people had resigned from the board, I think you have in your package a letter from the new president of the board saying that voting or weighing in against this. Counsel is not a realtor or real estate agent giving you an opinion of value. I've been doing this for a long time, and I also have an opinion on value, and it doesn't matter. I mean, I know how appraisers appraise property, I know how buyers look, and the idea of being closer to the line or not from the line on a lot this big is irrelevant. And then there's the fact, it's just a plain fact, that there are no windows on the petitioner's side of the property that is peeping in. Their indoor privacy is not affected at all. What they're complaining about is if they might be outdoors, which can be viewed from anywhere around the property, they're worried that people would be peeking out the windows and looking at them. I mean, it's a buyer would probably not take issue with that, and I wouldn't expect a seller to lower his price if that issue came up. The issue that's been glossed over, I mean, part of your standard is if this is a self-inflicted wound.
1 minute remaining.
I will talk quickly. So it's a self-inflicted wound. There were perfectly good trees sitting there. They were tall, they were mature, they had been there, this has been there 12 years. They were there all throughout the first 10 and a half. He took them down a little while later and decided he didn't have any privacy, and now he wants to put up what is a rock-solid fence. There's no air that moves through there. With regard to the HOA, they just have not done anything with that yet. They haven't applied, they haven't sought a variance, they haven't sought anything with the HOA. What this reminds me of is when my kids were growing up, they'd come and say, "Dad, Mom said we could do X." And I'd say, "Well, okay." And then they'd go to their mother, and I would have been, they'd play us back and forth. And the problem you have here is you're being asked to approve a variance from 8 to 10, but you don't know that he would be allowed to build 8 in under the HOA. So if the HOA said you could build a 6-foot fence, then are you giving a 4-foot variance? I suggest
Time is up.
that the issue isn't quite ripe yet. That what you ought to do is table this, see what the HOA does. If the HOA doesn't give him any approval, he has a remedy and we can fight that out, we will. But, you are being asked to give a theoretical opinion, because there's not a factual permission that he has to build even the 6 foot that he's looking at. And so I think, I would like to think of the city as the last approval that I go to, and you don't want them coming back saying, well, we need 2 more feet. I mean, that would just be awkward. So if you don't,
Finish up, please. Finish up, please. Your time's up.
okay. Yeah, if you don't decide that this is a self-inflicted wound and just doesn't fit within what the ordinance requires, then I would urge you at least to consider that this isn't ripe for your decision yet, that you can table this, you can see what he's permitted to do otherwise. Frankly, we could bring some affidavits before you that question some of the assertions that have been made
We need
for
to
the
wrap
first
it up.
time. I'm done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
If there's anyone else from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, if you are in person, please come forward. Sign in and state your name for the record, please, as well.
Good evening. I'm Mary Spires. I'm the owner of 3740 Windermere. When I purchased the home in 1992, there was over 15 feet in height, shrubs and trees from the front to halfway to the back. That has been adequate, and it was in good health. We had no problem with it. We cannot see through it. These were removed and last fall replaced with these cedar trees, which grow at 1 to 2 feet a year, which have already grown over a feet. This angle of the photograph does not show how they are solid there. When we bought the house in 1992, we understood the barrier as one place, the boundary line, and have observed that for over 30 years. The neighbor decided last year to do a survey, and it was determined this was an error. It's been long-standing for that reason. So for us, the window that you see pictured there, you're going to see it is not aligned at all with the interior of the house. As you can see on the patio, that we are elevated by the nature and terrain of the property, so that at ground level, the floor of the patio is at ground level, and so we are slightly elevated. There's no way we can peer in the windows, and heaven's sakes, I have no interest to peer into any windows that don't exist. It's a solid wall except for on the west side, except for a window on the west side that's part of the garage up front. So there is no alignment. We are in a neighborhood. As a consequence, all the neighbors, there is some visibility.
1 minute remaining.
And so having read your rules, this is a problem he created for himself. Those trees and shrubs were fine. I can bring you a photo from the summer before and show you that if that's necessary. He chose to take this down and was distressed by the outcome, and we're here. The HOA requires that we give approval for fencing. We have not given approval. There is no perimeter fencing allowed by signature or participating in deeding in that area. And you have to have your neighbor's approval. It has to be decorative. So thank you very much, and sorry we're here with these 2 parallel issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak? Seeing no one, if there's anyone accessing the meeting remotely who wishes to speak, please press star 9 or raise your hand.
There are no callers.
Thank you, Courtney. I will note. Did you have something?
Yeah.
Oh.
I would like to say something.
Okay, yes, sir, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, oh, okay. If the non-conforming structure was placed correctly at 6 feet from my property line, we could have placed more than 3 arborvitaes, and they would be stronger. They would be not influenced by weather or snow. This way, only 3 can be placed, and they are flimsy. They don't have a good conditions for growth. As you can see, the sidewalk is sidewalk of 3740 is right there on their roots, and they are 10 years old. They are 10 years. These 3 arborvitaes masking the window were placed when we came home and saw that they have a build additional structure. Regarding disturbance by recording with camera, I have witnesses also to say that they've been recorded. Regarding that shrubs which were existent before, which I cut, they were hard to maintain on my side. As you can see, elevation leans everything towards me, towards my property, and they were old. And when I spoke with Ms. Karen and Kathy, they were not objective to that. They only objected when I started planting the additional arborvitaes. And I also want to emphasize one thing. Obviously, this non-conforming structure
1 minute remaining.
opportunity for them to expand. The structure should have been put 6 feet or 7 feet above. And I noticed that whoever approved this without surveying first. When they built the house, they didn't survey first. So this is irresponsibility. It is a freedom, but it is irresponsible freedom. And there is an encroachment, as you can see from the picture, on my property. So I appeal that this injustice be rectified.
Thank you, sir.
As my lawyer said. Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to speak on this petition? I will note quickly, we did receive letters, as mentioned previously, from the Earhart Knowles Homeowners Association, from Mary Catherine Spires and Ann McCarran, from Joseph Lloyd on behalf of Mary Catherine Spires and Ann McCarran, and from Judy Stein and Gary Fisher, all in opposition. No more callers?
No callers.
All right, with that, the public hearing is closed and we're in discussion. Dave?
These fence issues, and I live in Burns Park. Our setbacks, there's a lot of non-conforming structures. Houses are close to each other. We peacefully coexist. But this reminds me of something from several years ago where 2 neighbors, one of the neighbors accidentally built something, accidentally, a little bit too close to a lot line. There may be a couple of the board members here who were there. And there was these 2 neighbors that had formerly gotten along really well. Their relationship deteriorated to the point where one of the neighbors wanted a higher fence. I remember we eventually approved that fence. But why can't people get along? Clearly, there's something going on where both neighbors have brought attorneys into this, and I'm sure at no small expense, to try to resolve this issue. I would personally encourage the neighbors to sit down and talk about what could go in there to resolve whatever issues exist. If that is what the issues are, there may be some deeper issues. I know because in fact, today I was working on removing the leftover trunks, but the ice storm from this spring bent the arborvitaes that we had placed as a screen in collaboration with our neighbor who has since moved, and new neighbors live there, and I'm working with them. But we're taking the arborvitaes out because they're all bent over, and we're putting in a replacement. I've got a 3-foot fence, 80%. It's one of those shadow box fences, but we just wanted some screening, so we're probably going to put some lilacs or some other things in there. But I know that there's an issue with screening in these sorts of issues where you're right next to each other. I feel like this does meet many of the standards on our variance determination worksheet. The conditions of the proposed variance are not self-imposed. They're imposed partially because the neighbor built into the setback contrary to what city building codes and zoning codes allow. I feel like this valuation, the real estate value, is irrelevant. That doesn't matter. But it does include substantially more than mere inconvenience, not the higher financial return. But I think there is a substantial inconvenience here imposed by the proximity of the new built structure that was built in contrary to the zoning codes. I think that allowing the variance will result in substantial justice being done in this situation. Now, I would take issue with Mr. Lloyd's contention that we should come after the homeowners association. I totally disagree. The homeowners association can do whatever they want to do. The property owner has to go to the homeowners association to get their approval. Whether we grant the variance or not is irrelevant to them. If we do grant the variance, fine. Then they still have to go to the homeowners association. Heaven forbid, I see more litigation and more lawyer fees ahead if that's the case. I'm very comfortable with the city proceeding and granting, if the board agrees, granting this variance in this situation to try to have some sort of justice, to make justice with the issue of the illegally built addition to the neighbor's house. So I'm going to vote for this, but I wish these neighbors would get along and please work with each other. But I'm going to vote for this. I hope the rest of the board agrees.
Thank you, Dave. Any other discussion? Chris?
I have a few points. So first, I just, as a planner too, how it happens is very easy, right? John or whoever was in the position previously reviewed this plan that was in conformance with the rules. And even if there was a rule that John or whoever was in the building department had to go out and measure on site, there's still little way to confirm where the property line actually is, even if it's marked. There's no way to determine that is actually precise. And so, a foot or two is probably very common in all communities. So, just kind of generally how that happens, it's really easy. And so my general thoughts, though, are two wrongs don't make a right. I think we're talking about the self-imposed hardship in the wrong way. The practical difficulty is supposed to be what prevents this person from complying, and the answer is nothing. An 8-foot fence could go there with ease, right? So there's no practical difficulty preventing you from complying. So in that way, I find that the practical difficulty not only is self-imposed, it just doesn't exist. I don't believe that that if a house was 5 feet away versus 3.7 feet away, that there would be any less privacy issues. Nor do I believe that there would be any better planting conditions for trees than exist today. I disagree that there cannot be adequate living screen planted here or anywhere. I think there can be, despite our difficult climate at some times. And then just to address the standards, given the lack of windows on the side of the house, the subject property side of the house, so we're talking about backyard privacy, right, for one person, one house, which would not be improved with a conforming structure, in my opinion. That is, to me, an inconvenience. I understand people like backyard privacy, but slightly less is an inconvenience to me. I think they have failed to meet Standard B. I also don't think that they meet the Standard C, substantial justice. If we say that it is a practical difficulty imposed on this property owner that a non-conforming structure was allowed next door inadvertently, I think substantial justice would be then to grant anybody who comes before us, whether it is 3.7 feet or 100 feet from the property line, because the practical difficulty that the lessened privacy imposes on us. And then Standard E. I don't think this is a minimum variance necessary because I don't think a variance is necessary to comply with our ordinance. An 8-foot fence could go up tomorrow with living screen and be in compliance. So I'm going to vote no.
For the record, I didn't work for the city in 2012, and I didn't review these plans.
He would have caught it, obviously.
In defense of the person who did review them, what the information was presented to them did meet the code, so that's why it was approved.
John,
But-
I'm not saying the city was wrong in this.
No, I know.
I am saying that the property owners that build contrary to our zoning regulations were wrong. They had an obligation.
I just wanted to make sure, it's been mentioned a couple times that I
Okay.
worked for the city and I was
Okay.
not employed with the city in 2012,
Okay.
just for the record.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Mike?
Very quickly, I had great points by both of my colleagues up here. I'm with Chris on this one. For me, it's the fifth standard. It's not the minimum variance to make possible reasonable use of the land. So the neighbor could just go up to their second floor window and take pictures if they wanted to. The 10-foot, if that's really what the person's going to do, the extra 2 feet's not going to stop them. So I don't see a good reason to go against our ordinance on this. So I'm voting no.
John, do you know, the grade difference between the two lots is kind of visible in this picture. Do you know what that difference is? Is it a foot different? Is it 2 feet different?
Based on probably
need different standards.
But if you look at the addition on the left side, appears to be like that additional wall space. Not positive. That's what it's like. What block last
Sure.
the crawl space. Block, cinder block. So you see the different structures, elevation of 1 to 2, I would say, in the.
So that said, where is the height of the fence measured from? Is it from the lower side or the higher side?
The ordinance says when a fence is the lot line, it's higher side. So whatever face would be the tallest side, so side of the property.
The applicant's side. The
So
applicant's
whichever-
is the
whichever
lower
the
side.
right side. The lower side would be measured from that, because they're. the fence would be
Microphone.
taller at that point.
Microphone.
The fence would be taller at that point. So you'd measure from whatever side the fence would be the tallest, you'd measure it when it's placed on a property line.
But functionally, or I guess in
So
the field, as they say, if the adjacent property is 1.5 to 2 feet taller, then the fence would be 1.5 to 2 feet shorter, measured from that property line. So, I mean,
That
from their
could-
perspective, it would be an 8-foot fence, not a 10-foot fence.
That's possible. It just all depends on how
Sure.
it's constructed in the field.
Sure. Okay,
But
thanks, Jen.
if I was called to do an inspection, I would have to measure it from
The lower side.
the right side of this picture, or the applicant who's requesting the variance on that side, because that's going to be the tallest elevation.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? We ready for a motion? Thank you, Dave.
In accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby, ZBA 23-0013, 3720 Windermere Drive. In accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants a 2-foot fence height variance from Section 5.26.2, subsection 3, fences, residential zoning districts. The variance allows for a 10-foot tall fence to be constructed in the rear yard. The fence is to be built per the submitted plans.
Thank you, Dave. I have a motion. Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you, Chris. Christina?
Yes.
Chris?
No.
Grace?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Dharma?
No.
Sadira?
No.
Mike?
No.
Dave?
DeVarty, yes.
We have 4 yeses and 4 nos, so the request is denied. Moving on to petition ZBA 23-0019, 3380 Nixon Road. I'm going to step out, so Dave, I'll turn it over to you.
Do I need? I don't need it. You're going to have to help me. ZBA 23-0019, 3380 Nixon Road. So we'll start with the city's presentation.
All right, we're going to just kind of switch things around a little bit for this evening. I'm going to go ahead and orient everyone to the site, and then we have Jill Thatcher with the Planning Department. She's a senior planner, also a Historic District Coordinator. This is her site plan project, and she's going to present the staff report and her commentary and feedback after I go through the slides. So if you turn your attentions to the monitors, the first slide, you'll see the subject property is highlighted in yellow. It's on the east side of Nixon Road, and it's just south of US 23/M14. The next slide is the aerial photo. You see the surrounding properties and existing conditions. The property is it's an R4 property. It's a multifamily project. It's also known as Owl Creek. And you see the relationship of the parking lot to the north side of the property, and as well as a wetland feature to the east. The next slide shows the existing property in a zoomed-in condition and aerial photography, and you see how it currently is, its current condition and its configurations. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. And the next slide shows where a proposed building is going to be, a new building, and it's going to be existing over this parking lot. And tonight we're here to seek a variance for this rear yard setback area. And I am going to show it in a little bit closer. You'll see where the variance is being requested right here. It's showing 27.7 feet from the rear lot line. These are photos that I took when I made my site visit. You see the entrance and the clubhouse. This is on the east side of Nixon Road. And these are some of the existing multifamily structures that are on the site. This is looking from that parking lot area on the north side of the site to the west at some more of the natural features and the existing buildings. And this is that existing parking lot where I was standing at taking photos, and M23 or M14 US 23 is just on the other side of those trees. This is looking east on the site towards that wetland natural feature. And this is looking more towards the east as well on an existing playground. And these are slides that were submitted by the applicant. I will let them comment on the next couple of slides when they give their presentation. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jill Thatcher, as I stated earlier.
Thank you. I want you all to know that in 17 years as a city planner, I've never been to the ZBA, so I'm very happy to be here tonight. I can cross it off my bucket list. So this is part of the Owl Creek Phase 2 site plan project, which is currently under review by city staff. The request is for a variance of 7.08 feet from the required 34.85 feet to 27.77 feet. Right now, this property is zoned, I'm not sure what it's zoned right now, but it's proposed to be rezoned to R4D, and those are the standards that we're applying here. The building is longer and taller than a typical building, so additional setback requirements are applied in this case. I checked the calculation with the engineer who did them. Everything was worked out fine. I didn't include them in here, but it does mean that they're going from a 30-foot to a 34.85-foot setback requirement. These additional requirements, additional setback is required because it's meant to buffer the neighbors from taller than usual or longer than usual buildings. There really aren't neighbors here because of the wetland. So it's not really accomplishing its buffering goal in that way. However, it is still required in the R4D. And let's see, one other thing to add is that the building is currently proposed to be 59.75 feet tall. And part of the request for the new R4D zoning is to cap the height limit at 75 feet instead of 120 feet, which you could get from R4D. So they're still well within their self-imposed restriction, assuming that rezoning would pass. So I don't have a ton to add here. I should point out that a large portion of those wetlands were donated from Owl Creek Phase 1. This used to be a big rectangular parcel. Now it has that meandering rear lot line. That's because of the donation that was made to city parks and natural areas. The applicant here did their due diligence and asked the city if they would alter that line for the city park that was donated a couple of years ago. It went through legal. It was determined that that was not something that the city was interested in doing. It would probably require a vote of the people of the city of Ann Arbor in order to change that boundary, even if there was no net gain or loss of parkland. But they did look into that to make sure that that wasn't a possibility. So any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Are there any questions from anybody on the board? Chris?
I'm sorry. I thought you both did a great job presenting. Can we go one more time to the specific spot where the setback is not met and just highlight that? Is it at the corner of the?
Yes, right where John's pointing with the little arrow.
Yep.
That is the closest point of the proposed building. It's over the top of that parking lot. The parking lot stays, the building is elevated over the top of it, and the corner of the building there is 27.77 feet from the lot line.
I think I was just confusing the parking spaces as the edge.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's-
very much.
It's a little bit, it overhangs a little bit from those parking spaces.
Yeah, that's what I tried to convey in that presentation. You see that little corner, and I have given you guys all the handouts on this. That's that corner where the building will be 7.08 feet additionally to that rear setback.
Are there any other questions?
I had a question. Is this the, I was just looking for a more zoomed-in view of that corner, just understanding what elements are going around the perimeter of the new building between that and the lot line. Is it just green space, or is there like a sidewalk and additional landscape?
That might be a question for the applicant.
Okay,
Yeah, why don't you see what
sure.
images he shows? and-
Okay, so I'm not missing anything in the packet?
No.
Okay,
no.
thanks.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I do have a couple questions. When Owl Creek donated this wetland parcel to the city, did they receive any development premiums as part of, in trade for that?
I do not know, but I think you should ask the applicant that when it's his turn to stand up.
Well, they may not know either. They may. And then secondarily is, I'm not familiar with this park and haven't used it, but it's a wetland. Has the county water resources commissioner, formerly the drain commissioner, weighed in with an opinion on this?
They are one of the reviewers for the site plan project.
Okay.
Let me look really quickly. I've got it open here. I can tell you if they had any, the site plan has been through one round of reviews. Now it's waiting to be resubmitted once staff questions are responded to,
Okay.
in part because the applicants were waiting for this meeting to see what would happen before they uploaded their next round. Let me go into here. We've got we have a required resubmit for county stormwater review. So it's not been signed off on yet, but it's under review.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, if the petitioner would like to come to the microphone and give us your presentation.
Sure. Brad Moore, J. Bradley Moore, Associate Architect for the project. Our civil engineers couldn't be with us here today, so I'm kind of doing double duty. The city council has charged myself and others with trying to find ways of accommodating more neighbors in our city. And in the face of a housing crisis, and given that we have established boundaries for the city and policies in place to prevent suburban sprawls. So in being creative and trying to find ways to do that, this is one property that was underutilized. The land use efficiency is quite low because, quite honestly, the existing R4A zoning is a suburban model of zoning. Had like 10 units per acre. Yes, there was a chunk, that unusual shaped chunk that kind of surrounds the wetlands, was donated from the original property, creating the irregular parcel that it is today. Had anybody known that we'd have a housing crisis and that the city would ameliorate its parking requirements, that property angle that is in that upper right-hand quadrant, northeast quadrant, would have been adjusted to permit the building that we want to build. And as Joe mentioned, we even came up with an idea of realigning that angle of that property line, even to the point where the city would be the net benefit of getting more park area than they have today. It was not to be. So given the fact that that is being imposed upon us, we're asking for the variance that you see before you tonight. This building is being placed in the only buildable area on the site over, in part, some existing impervious area. So the advantage of building the building, which will slightly encroach, is that it gives us the ability to have more units and therefore more people accommodated in the city without increasing impervious area. all of the parking that is there today was originally required for what was built in the first phase and is unused. So it's just a wasted impervious area. So we're trying to increase the utility and efficiency by how we're adding this new element. As Jill mentioned, the purpose of the requirement doesn't exist here. There's no neighbors to buffer our building from. And with respect to premiums, there were no premiums allowed, and this is a zoning character. R4A doesn't have zoning premiums. So no, there wasn't anything gained by the donation. And it is being reviewed by both the city and county. The wetlands, you can see on that drawing, there's a 25-foot buffer that the city requires from the edge of the wetland, so that there's little to no chance that anything you do will encroach into the wetland. So you can see that we're staying well out of the wetland, but we do have to shoehorn the building in between the parking that's there and the stormwater detention basin that's there. And that kind of lays out the shape, the length, and the width of that building. There are no particular paved walking surfaces around that corner of the building. So it would just be natural landscaping. There's an existing dog park to the east, which would be maintained. So the residents will have a place to walk their dogs off a leash. We heard from our citizens participation meeting that there's an access to the park along the easternmost property line that traverses a wet, marshy, boggy area. People get all muddy in it if light sticks down. And so we're talking with the Parks Department that maybe part of our parks contribution for the project could be used to put in a more permanent, drier path over that vernal stream that occurs there. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Did you want to go over those slides that were here at the end, or no?
You know, I could demonstrate in one of those slides. I think you guys have printouts that we are well beyond, I mean, orders of magnitude beyond the required setback for most of the length of the building, 200 feet. You know, as you get farther and farther, there's some diagonal distances there. So I think, you know, from the concept of how would you look at it as an average setback? We're way over the requirement.
1 minute remaining.
I'm good.
Are there any questions for the petition?
I had a question. I noticed in the packet, it made mention that the vertical increase was evaluated. Did you want to just speak to that a little bit? It just says here, without the variance, the balance of density can only be achieved by higher building height. I guess maybe has that really been studied at all?
Yeah,
or-
so
okay.
for example, if we were to take the units, if we didn't get the variance and we couldn't build over the existing impervious area, those units then could in theory be piled on top of the building. The issue is one of construction technology and cost. So the Michigan Building Code requires changes in construction technology based on height. So the 5-story height that we're proposing is the tallest that a building can be built using wood frame construction, often called stick construction. Beyond that, you're getting into a very much more expensive construction, which wouldn't make the project financially feasible.
I see, okay.
Are there any other questions for the petitioner? Then,
I have a question.
okay.
I apologize, I had to step out, so you might have addressed this at the beginning. I'm sure there was thought to this. Is it not possible to simply cut out a chunk of 7 feet and design it in a different way to accommodate that setback and avoid being here?
Again, not efficiently from the standpoint of construction technology. It would either have to go over the entire parking lot, or you pull it back so that it doesn't go over the parking lot.
Okay.
I'm just curious, just picking up on your response right there. So is this a panelized system, or you said it's stick-built, but is there any panelization to this?
In all likelihood, there would be panelization. The technology that is available today would allow a lot of the off-site construction of the walls
Sure.
put on trucks and brought in. And that facilitates construction and speed, but it still limits spanning distances and cantilever distances. You know, if it was a poured concrete building or a structural steel building, we could just do a lot of things we can't do it with.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, that's sort of the follow-up to Chris's comment a little bit there. Thank you.
Then we will open it up to any callers. Are there any callers that would like to speak to this proposal? Courtney?
There are no callers.
So there are no callers. With that, we'll hold discussion open on this proposal.
Close the public hearing.
Oh, the public hearing is closed, and we will open up discussion for the board on this proposal. Discussion, anybody? Okay, Chris.
I think the standard's silly. Even if there were buildings, I'm not sure what the purpose of protecting other multifamily structures from this multifamily. I'm not sure what harm. I don't know. It seems like a very silly standard. And I think more housing in Arbor is great, especially, in a space that is going to just be parking otherwise. On the other hand, I don't know, 7 feet, I'm sure there was a way to come up with 7 and change feet.
Is there any other discussion? Dharma?
Just say, it's nice to see something come forward that's the result of removing parking minimums in exchange for more housing. And I agree, the purpose of the buffer is about creating a buffer between neighbors. There are no neighbors, so I don't see the purpose in upholding this. So I plan to support the variance.
Any other discussion? I'm just going to say that, as far as I'm concerned, if the water resources people and the city planners sign off on it, I'll happily welcome more housing into the community. And proceed with the vote. Oh, I need a motion. Yeah, where am I? Chris?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll do it. Based on the following findings and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants a 7.08-foot side yard setback variance from Table 5.17.3B, multifamily residential zoning district dimensions. The variance is for the southeast corner of the proposed building, adjacent to the wetland area owned by the city of Ann Arbor. The property is zoned R4D multiple family dwelling district and requires a 25-foot side yard setback.
Is there support? Dharma support?
Hold on one second, we gotta change that motion to, it's a 7.08 foot setback from the rear yard of 34, what was it? 34.85, so, yep. So it'd be a 7.08 foot setback from the 34.85 rear yard setback.
So amended.
Okay, just want to make that clear for the record.
And you accept that as, okay. Okay.
A second. Need a second.
We got it. In fact, Dharma and Grace both
Oh, okay.
chimed in, and I gave it to Dharma.
Okay.
Dharma?
Yes.
Sadira?
Yes.
Mike Daniel?
Yes.
Christina?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's 7 votes yes. Oh, and I should note that Candace, our board chair, had to recuse herself. So that's 7 votes in favor, no votes against. The variance is approved. Okay, with that, moving along the agenda.
Candace is coming back.
Oh, I'm up. I did not lose that election. Thank you.
All right, moving on to, Dave, are these your glasses? Moving on to unfinished business, we have none. New business, we have addressed communications. I believe we addressed those with each petition. Public comment. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak to the ZBA, now's your chance. If you're here in person, please come forward. If you're accessing the meeting remotely, please press *9 or use the raise hand function.
There are no callers.
Thank you, Courtney.
So before we adjourn, and it was such a last-second appointment, we should have probably had it in our new business, but at this time, I'm going to welcome our new Zoning Board of Appeals member. Her name is Sadira Clark, and she comes to us also from the Planning Commission. She's a planning commissioner. So welcome aboard, and we look forward to having you.
Welcome. Yeah, please do.
I'd like to, I'm trying to set up a meeting with some people that are conversant in the dark sky requirements, the lighting requirements that we've had a couple times before the ZBA. So I want to get educated myself about some of this. So I'm trying to set that up for myself. But when I'm able to, and it'll be sometime in the next 3 weeks, I'd like to send out an invite to anybody here to join, since I see this as something that'll be coming to us in the future, and I'll make sure through John that we'll be invited to that. It's not going to be in regards to any particular proposal that is coming before us, but just to give a better sense and some education about the issue. And I might also invite some of my fellow members at the Washtenaw Community College Board of Trustees, another place where I'm seeing some of these lighting issues potentially coming before that board that I serve on. So I'll let people know, and I just wanted to give an advance warning that it has not been set, but is likely to be set sometime in the next several days. And then further, I'd just like to speak quickly, since we have people here from the Planning Commission and from planning staff. I keep thinking, as we look at these criteria and evaluate some of these proposals, the one that went down on a 4-4 vote earlier, that there are variances that come before us that need different criteria. And this is something that the planning staff really needs to work on. And among those are fences, signs, electric charging stations, and lighting. And I really encourage, John, if you could take that to the planning director and see if there could be some discussion about some sort of different criteria for us to look at when we're reviewing those sorts of proposals. And I'm not sure, other people on the board may disagree. And we did recently have the retreat, and I raised it then, so I'm raising it again.
All right, thanks, Dave. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Chris. All in favor? Or sorry, support first. Thank you, Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.